This says, I reported 5 coworkers to my company before the murder attempt because I believed they knew who was breaking into my home. There was innuendos and certain things said that I was convinced that these people at work, my coworkers, my friends, quote unquote friends, knew what was going on in my house. They were dropping hints. And so I went to my supervisor and I explained this to him, because I was highly concerned with people breaking my home, rightfully so, because they ended up cutting my phone lines and shooting me. These people are cold-blooded killers. Now we know that. I now believe they knew. I now believe the reason they knew is because of the oil show parties, and my company, DCP Midstream, is a major gas company that is half owned by Conoco Phillips, and that's natural gas coming out of the ground. We own most of the plants, the gas plants in the area. There is now a lot of information and details now known about the 4 3-bedroom underground homes, which were called safe houses and put in for the Bushes back in the 80s. The Bushes are from Midland, Texas, as in President Bush, 2 presidents, both of them Bush. Based on old Google Maps, it's easy to see one of them is located in my backyard, and I now suspect that a lot of people in my company knew this, which would explain how they knew what was going on inside my home when I lived alone. Okay, and so anyway, this is my main map that I use all the time. This is actually from Google Earth, and it's showing, here's the Home Depot store, Midland Home Depot store. Here's my home where I was ambushed and shot. Right here's where it's showing by somebody under my home, burglar alarms going off in the attic. I had been reporting repeated burglaries to my house. I believe that the people at the oil show parties were parking in the Home Depot parking lot, coming underground here and using this, which is a tunnel that was cut between Home Depot and my home, and that's how they were getting to the underground homes. One of the 4 underground homes was located in my backyard. On old Google Maps, you used to go and you look at my address and you would see on the satellite screen there's my backyard, but on the map screen it showed a big building in my backyard. That got removed back in January after I notified the city of Midland that there's a lot of people documented saying that there's underground homes here. Plus there's supporting evidence on Google Maps, and a week later it gets deleted. So I think somebody with the city of Midland was in an effort to cover up the Capitol murders that said that were happening here, and and literally that's what they were doing, was covered up Capitol murders along with the Capitol attempted murder of my life. And then Megan here wrote on my Facebook this morning, she said, do you think the guy that went on the murderous rampage was in on it and just lost his shit? And I don't know who she was talking about, a murderous rampage, but I replied and I said, I don't know who shot me, because I was ambushed by somebody under my home. They cut my phone lines and shot me by surprise. But it's now proven that police were under my home that night, and obviously they know who tried to murder me. Those officers' names are Davis, Dickey, Chatwell, Angel, and Hell. And and I showed the proof here. The proof came on the police report that was illegally withheld for 7 years. The reason they illegally withheld the police report, because it incriminated them. It time-stamped them in my house when they were not seen arriving on the security cameras. That's how we know they came from under my home, and it was somebody under my home that shot me. And then I have it, documented at the top. Matt Davis is on scene 11:03, but he's not seen arriving on security cameras. 2 minutes before, 2 other officers were seen arriving on security cameras. And there's also Dickey, Chatwell, Angel, and Hell. Dickey was inside my house at 11:05. He tells the dispatcher, inside his house, lots of booby traps. Well, how'd he get inside my house if he didn't drive up, and come in the door? That's the question. He came because he came from under my house. It was somebody under my house that shot me, that tried to murder me. After I told my supervisor at work, Dane Wiggins, about my belief who these co-workers were, it caused a hostile work environment where I was belittled and mocked. I then had to come home at night where armed and dangerous criminals were breaking into my home and stealing from me. What are they stealing? They're stealing shelter, heating, cooling, electricity, privacy, my sense of security. They're not stealing TVs and jewelry, but they are stealing. It's called theft of services. Dane was the guy that asked me to look at this job in Midland in the first place, and I suspect he knew about the underground homes before I agreed to move over here. And I sent Dane Wiggins a note after I survived the murder attempt. I said, Dane, you have that documentation where I reported the 5 coworkers, and he blocked me, and I've never talked to him again. 6 months after I survived the murder attempt, I got a return to work permit from my doctor. I was a programmer and I had a desk job, but Dane told me that HR decided I was too disabled to go back to work, and that ended my 28-year career. Thankfully, I was paying for disability insurance, which has given me a small portion of my check to live off of. There has been a great financial hardship, along with being physically disabled, thanks to these killers that chose to break into a private home and try to murder an innocent homeowner that's home minding his own business, you know. After I was gone, they laid off most of the people that I reported, along with Dane. Even Dane got laid off. I felt like a cover-up was going on, and they threw me away like a piece of trash. I love my company, and I had started working there when I was 18 years old. It was Phillips 66 back then. So most of y'all have heard of Phillips 66. We were still half owned by Phillips. And so oil field companies, oil parties, Phillips 66 is a big oil company. Another guy that was laid off was Ken Slager, and he used to live directly across the street from my home, but I hadn't reported him. Ken was the director of a commercial group, and his group took care of the company booth at the oil shows. Ain't that interesting? In my backyard is an underground home where they're having oil show parties, and the guy who lives across the street, his group's over the oil booth at the oil shows. I feel that Ken knew about the underground home in my backyard that was hosting parties for the oil show, and that was the reason that they laid him off too, And so I want to show you the deed ownership for this home, which is actually 3803. I live at 3802 Fair Circle. Dustin lives there now, and you can see when I first moved in, Marilyn DeLugie lived there. Marilyn's the woman that told me Mike Lawhon died in this house twice, and she also said somebody else died there before him. She lived in this house, and she bought the house actually from the relocation company. It was because Ken Slager had moved, because we had transferred him, my company did, to Houston, and then they transferred him back. He lives in Midland now. Like I said, he no longer works for the company. Aaron Packelhofer, a local businessman and a Mason, told me that 4 people had been murdered, died in my home before they tried to murder me. My guess is one of those was Mike Lawhon, the 27-year-old father that died the week before the 2008 oil show started. Think about the timing of that. It's very controversial on the evidence about how Mike died. I suspect he was murdered here and taken to Fort Worth, and the reason is because that 2008 oil show was fixing to start. And after he died, I bought this home from his widow a few weeks later. She dropped the price an amazing $35,000 and offered it to me. The ex-wife later told me, "You were chosen to buy this home." And then my friend from work, she told me about a young girl that was murdered at a 2010 oil show party. I believe once again that happened in the underground home in the backyard. But she was afraid to report the murder and said high-level police were at the party. Okay, and then I got threatened by the police to never talk to her again, which I didn't. I complied, but I believe that one of them high-level police was the late Sheriff Gary Painter, because I secretly recorded Sheriff candidate Joe Lozano as saying the underground homes was his hideout. I have videos on a TikTok on that, and as a sheriff candidate recording, they later went and arrested that Joe Lozano after I made that public, and I'm suspecting that was so that they could threaten him with prison and control what he says. They arrested him after I made it public. He told me, about Sheriff Painter hiding out in underground homes here. And then the last one here says the company HR director wrote this to me on Facebook, and I strongly believe that she knew about the underground parties, which would mean that she also knew that I was the victim of a premeditated capital attempted murder, which left me crippled while trying to convince people that I was crazy. My HR director at work. My name has been smeared over and over and again when I was home and minding my own business. This was a premeditated murder of an innocent person. Now, and this is what Shayna Troyer, my company HR director, wrote me on Facebook in the public, telling me she's going to get a lawyer defamation. I don't appreciate my name being associated in your batshit crazy lunatic ravens. See, that that was the lies they were spreading about me. So I wonder if Shayna knew about the underground homes and she was a part, because it was HR that wouldn't let me go back to work. Ended my 28-year career with my company, and here, I mean, I 100% believe those 5 coworkers that I reported, they knew then, they knew now. And it's more than that. There's a lot of people know about these oil show parties. At the time, I didn't know oil show parties were going on in the underground home in the backyard, but I do now. I'm sure of it. It's Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.